Hello and welcome to the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast, the space where we explore all things that can preserve our energy, our peace of mind, and our love for life. I'm Kendra Chapman, and I've decided that in 2026, I'm going to be adding a second solo cast every week coming out on Tuesdays, in addition to the episodes that are slated to drop every Thursday. So hopefully you'll enjoy the solo cast episodes as well. And I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you'd like to hear about. I've been kind of leaning into what the data is sharing. It seems like I'm getting quite a few downloads on episodes about family and about cooking. So I think I'm going to lean into that space a little bit more. But I also had my highest number of downloads in October when I was doing interviews with people who were into more of the spiritual topics. So it's interesting to see where the stats are kind of leaning, where the data is telling me where I should go. Seems like it's a little bit spiritual, a little bit into the wellness aspect, a little bit into family. And so I'm leaning into the ancient practices that women and families have passed down through their lineage for centuries. But if there's something else that you would like to see me explore, let me know. Comment below in the YouTube videos on my YouTube channel, Kendra Chapman Living 123, or leave a message on my website, www.coachingwithkendrachapman.com. And if you're interested in working with me, definitely reach out and email me at coachingwithkendrachapman@gmail.com. All right. Today we're leaning into something deeply countercultural, deeply ancient, and in my opinion, needed right now: winter rhythm. We're in the middle of winter here in January of 2026. And the fields are quiet, the trees are bare, and much of the world appears dormant. I was out for a walk on my upper field with my husband today, and for the most part, it was pretty quiet. There's a few birds chirping. It was sunny. It's a little warmer than it has been around this time of the year, but generally speaking, it's pretty seasonal temperatures. But we did see 3 deer as we were walking. They got stirred up and started running away. So there are animals out and about, but not as much. But yet there's definitely important work going on. You can tell that the sunlight has shifted. There's more sunlight than there was a month ago because we've already had the winter solstice, which was the darkest day of the year, and the light has begun to slowly return. So days are getting longer, and it's a little by little. It's imperceptibly at first, but faithfully the sun is coming back. The Farmer's Almanac reminds us that winter is not a dead season, a planning season. It's for mapping and root strengthening. Nothing is blooming yet, but everything is preparing. And I just want to say that again because it is a struggle, right? This is where so many of us struggle. Nothing is blooming yet, but everything is preparing. Today's episode is about honoring that truth in our own lives, how winter invites us to slow down, reflect, and quietly design what we'll plant when the time is right. How we can work with the season instead of fighting it, and how going slow now is exactly what allows us to go fast later. So settle in, maybe grab a warm drink, take a deep breath, and let's step into this cozy topic together. Winter is a season of wisdom. In our modern world, winter often feels like something that we just have to get through. We push productivity, we override fatigue, we work all hours of the day with unnatural light. And we just expect ourselves to perform at summer speed in the darkest, coldest months of the year. And I just want to gently ask, at what cost? Because the Farmer's Almanac and generations before us tell a very different story. Winter was never meant for harvesting. It was meant for reviewing, repairing, resting, and planning. Farmers used winter months to study weather patterns, review what worked and didn't work in the previous growing season. They sharpened their tools. They did, maintenance around the farm and the homestead, worked on, winterizing their vehicles and whatever machinery, high tech or low tech, that they had. They ordered supplies like seeds, started looking to see what they needed to order. Obviously, if they were out of something or if they had too much of something else, they were taking stock and then they were ordering. They were mapping out next season's garden or fields and the layout of the crops. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening, but everything essential was happening beneath the surface. And the same is true for us. The same is true for us. If you're feeling more introspective right now, if your energy feels inward, if your creativity is quieter but deeper, that's not failure. It's not unnatural. That is alignment. And this idea, this deep respect for seasonal rhythm, it's just something that I've learned firsthand, viscerally. And especially when I was visiting Italy in 2008. And on Thursday's episode, I'm going to be talking with a woman who lives in Italy, and we discuss, coming from America into another country where they do things very differently. You are forced to slow down. You have to go slow because, they have things like siestas and everything shuts down. So you have no choice. And so I reminisce and tell a few stories, and we share our cultural amusement living in Italy or visiting Italy and other countries. I visited for 10 days in late summer. It was the August, September timeframe. And I arrived there very much shaped by American pace. I had schedules, I had expectations, and I had timelines. And while I was there on vacation, Italy did not care. Right. I think at some point there was talk of the trains shutting down. There was going to be a strike, and we just knew that we had to be really careful about where we were going so we could make sure we could go to and from where we needed to go or where we wanted to go. Our transportation, was kind of on a day-to-day plan because we didn't know what was going to happen. Shops close in the afternoon. Meals last hours and they don't care. Americans and their pace for hurry, hurry, and go is just not going to work in Italy, especially in the rural areas. Conversations aren't rushed, time feels slower, and it's intentionally that way. And at first, I did fight it. I remember thinking, why is nothing open? Why is everyone lingering? Why does it feel like the day just bends around meals instead of productivity or, on to the next thing? But over time, something softened. It only took a couple of days. And I leaned into that feeling of just noticing that Italians aren't lazy. They soak up every bit of their day, every bit of life. And it's intelligence in a different form. It's seasonal intelligence, even during late summer. They just didn't rush. It was a time for gathering, reflecting, resting, and being together. There was no guilt about that. And that's when I began to understand something that the ancients have known deeply. We are not meant to be in bloom all the time. Nature never is. So why should we be? This idea came up again so beautifully in my conversation with Tigriel, and we talk more at length about this on Thursday. So if you want to check out that conversation, definitely check out episode 5 of season 2. And she lives in Italy now in Damanhur, which is a spiritual community at the foot of the Alps. And she's been there for 14 years now, I believe. So she shares her insight into the, you know, pace of going slow and having her own struggles with that, but also celebrating that process of living by the season and the culture you're in. And while we had that discussion in August, we recorded that session actually, I think even at the end of July. We talked about seasonal shifts and rhythms and sunlight and how you would rise with the sun and go to, wind down your day with the sun. It all applies. It doesn't matter what time of year. So while we recorded that conversation in the summer, it's going to air this week in the winter. And I think it's just appropriate. It doesn't matter the time of day or the time of year, right? Because in the winter, snow is going to slow everything down. So is ice, cold temperatures, the light changes, the rhythm of the day, in the hot summer sun. You have to take your time because you don't have the energy. So in those extreme temperatures of hot and cold, your body has to take its time. And, in the mountains, you're going to quite literally have to set your pace. You have to take your time. In the part of Tuscany where I was staying, and when we went on hikes, you would see quite a few people using ski poles as walking sticks. And you need that on those higher elevations in areas where you're not really sure. You want to make sure you have your footing and you know where you're walking, and you have to take your time, or you could really become injured quickly. And so, just one example of why you need to go slow to go fast. She and I spoke about cultural norms and how you don't fight that environment. You listen to it. You dress differently, you move differently, you plan differently. And this is just where we talked about that old phrase, when in Rome, because literally, not just in Italy, but when you enter a culture or a season, you need to honor its ways. You're going to get more out of it if you honor its ways. Not only because it's respectful, but because those ways have evolved for a reason over time. Ancient cultures understood that. Our bodies follow light, our energy follows season, our creativity flows in cycles. Trying to force out constant output at any time, day or night, doesn't matter the time of year, especially in winter, is like trying to harvest in frozen ground. It doesn't work. It can exhaust us, and it does. So listen in on Thursday for our conversation to hear more. But thinking about winter time and how our body, it's not in bloom. It's really in that dormant phase. And, we dress differently, we feel differently. We like to cozy up to a fire. We like to have warm drinks. And even though planting won't begin for months, January is when gardens are born, right? They're born on paper. Gardeners and farmers, urban homesteaders, like one of my episodes in season 1, or rural homesteaders, doesn't matter. You're going to be thinking about your garden if you are going to try to grow anything. And this is the season for mapping out those beds, thinking about what you're going to grow, what you want to, and consider those companion plants, the ones that grow well together and the ones that don't. Reflecting on last year's yield. And here's where it becomes a metaphor for life. Winter is the time to ask, what do I want more of this year? What drained me last year? What deserves space in my life? And what doesn't? You don't need massive action right now. You just need intentional design. This is your inner garden plan. Thinking about the moon phases of the year is a good way to kind of guide your process. If, you have picked up a copy of the Farmer's Almanac, it places great emphasis on planting by the moon. And winter is the perfect time to reconnect with lunar rhythms. In January of 2026, we had a full moon, which was a wolf moon or a super moon on January 3rd. And we have a powerful new moon on January 18th coming up. Traditionally, the new moon is a time for intention setting, quiet beginnings, vision, and inward focus. And this is an ideal moment to journal about what you want to grow. You can consider setting intentions if you're not a goal person at the beginning of the year. Don't have to worry about resolutions. You just might want to set intentions about what you'd like to accomplish this year without pressure, without forcing that momentum. And you know what? You might not see results right away. And that's okay. And you know what? Neither does those seedlings under the ground. They have to take their time. The moon reminds us that growth is cyclical, not linear. And now that the sun is returning more and more each day, little by little, I think it's a minute every day, the sun rises a little earlier in the morning and it sets a little later in the evening by about a minute on either side of the day until you get to that daylight savings time in the US anyway, is what we use. And so you see that slight increase every day. It's slow and it's easy to miss, but nature never rushes. And January teaches us that small increases matter. So think about, as you set your intention and whatever you're working on, that any increase is progress. Progress doesn't have to be loud. And just know that trust builds before momentum, much like this YouTube channel. If any of this resonates with you, I'd love for you to like and subscribe. You know, my data is showing me that over 98% of the people watching these videos don't like or subscribe. They're not subscribers. So I would love for you to consider subscribing to this content. One, so you don't miss anything that comes out in the future. And two, so I can keep getting content to those who are interested in it. And also so this community can grow. It's just a little click for you, but it would mean so much to me if you would consider clicking like and subscribe. So each time you wake up in the morning, try this one practice. Notice the light each morning, even just for a moment. That awareness alone reminds your nervous system that change is already underway. And you know what? Winter rest is productive rest. The Farmer's Almanac doesn't encourage idleness. It encourages timely effort. Winter effort looks like this: more sleep, more warmth, fewer commitments, and more reflection. Rest now is not a delay. It is an investment. So how do we live in this real life? Start small. Observe without judgment, trust the season, and plan, don't push. Winter teaches us that stillness is not stagnation. Silence is not emptiness, and rest is not weakness. Don't feel guilty about taking a nap or going to bed a little earlier or letting yourself sleep in a little bit. It's okay. As the light continues to return, may you quietly trust what's taking shape beneath the surface. This is how we go slow to go fast, not by racing the season, but by respecting it. Thank you for being here with me today. If you liked this episode, I'd love for you to share it or even subscribe. And better yet, leave a review. It helps this message reach others who are craving a little more sustainability in their everyday. And remember, honor the season you're in, trust what you're planting, and know the light in me honors the light in you. And as you head into the rest of your week, let your light shine through. Go slow to go fast, and thanks for listening.